The call was made in less than a minute. One quiet accusation, one impatient glance, one decision that could have destroyed everything. She was standing in line, holding a receipt, when the store manager picked up the phone and told the police there was a suspicious woman refusing to cooperate. Customers stared. Phone started recording. And just like that, an ordinary afternoon turned into a public trial. She hadn't raised her voice. She hadn't broken any rules. But somehow she was the threat. What the manager didn't know was that someone powerful was about to walk through those same glass doors. And when that door opened, the entire balance of power shifted. The question is, why did it take that moment for anyone to see her humanity? Her name was Danielle Brooks, and by every measure, her life was steady. She was the kind of woman who kept receipts neatly folded in her wallet and sent thank you cards after dinner invitations. A marketing consultant by day, a volunteer mentor on weekends, Danielle believed in doing things the right way. She believed that if you treated people with respect, you'd receive it back. That afternoon, she had stopped by the boutique on Main Street between meetings. It was a small, upscale store she'd visited before. Bright lights, soft music, neatly arranged displays. She picked out a silk scarf as a gift for her mother and paid without hesitation. The cashier smiled politely. Nothing felt unusual. But as she stepped toward the exit, a voice cut through the air behind her. Sharp, suspicious, certain. The store manager was watching her. At first, Danielle assumed it was a mistake. Maybe they needed to check the receipt. Maybe there had been a misunderstanding. She turned calmly, unaware that every pair of eyes in the store was beginning to shift in her direction. What she didn't realize was that, in the manager's mind, a quiet story had already been written about her. And once that story takes hold, it's hard to undo. Within minutes, a simple shopping trip would turn into something far more dangerous than an accusation. It would become a test of dignity, power, and how quickly ordinary life can unravel. The manager didn't lower her voice. She stepped closer to Danielle, eyes narrowed, and asked to see the receipt again. Not a polite request, a demand, the kind that makes people turn and stare. Danielle handed it over, steady but confused. The total matched. The timestamp matched. The item was right there in the bag. It should have ended there, but it didn't. The manager's lips pressed into a thin line. She said the system was glitching, said there had been incidents lately, said they needed to be sure. Need to be sure of what? Customers began whispering. A woman near the register slowly pulled out her phone. A man shook his head but said nothing. Danielle could feel the shift in the room, the silent agreement forming that she was now the problem to be solved. Her heart pounded, but she kept her voice calm. She had done nothing wrong. She asked if there was an issue with the transaction. She offered to show her bank notification. She even suggested they check the cameras. The manager didn't look at the phone. Instead, she reached for hers. And that was the moment everything tilted. Danielle watched as the manager stepped aside and spoke in a low, urgent tone. Words like refusing to cooperate. Words like possible theft. Words that didn't match reality, but once spoken, couldn't be pulled back. The word police floated through the air. A ripple of discomfort moved across the store, but no one intervened. No one asked Danielle what happened. No one questioned why a paid receipt wasn't enough proof. Minutes stretched painfully long. Danielle's mind raced ahead of her body. She thought about headlines, about viral videos, about how quickly a misunderstanding could spiral when uniforms arrived and assumptions hardened. She thought about how many times stories like this ended with handcuffs. Outside, through the glass storefront, flashing lights reflected faintly against the window. They were actually coming. Her chest tightened, not from guilt, but from the knowledge that innocence had never guaranteed safety. The door opened, and 2 officers stepped inside. The music in the store kept playing, absurdly calm against the tension thickening the air. The manager approached them immediately, speaking with urgency, gesturing toward Danielle as if pointing out a threat. Danielle stood still, too still. She knew sudden movements could be misread. She knew tone could be misinterpreted. Every breath felt calculated. Every blink felt visible. One officer asked for her identification. Another asked her to step away from the counter. Customers backed up as if space itself needed protection from her. Danielle handed over her ID with steady hands, but inside, fear crept in. Not loud, not dramatic, Just quiet and familiar, the kind that comes from knowing this isn't just about a scarf anymore. The officer studied her license. His eyes flicked up, then down again. Something shifted in his expression. Not suspicion, recognition. And just as the manager continued explaining why she was certain Danielle had done something wrong, the front door opened once more. This time, the energy in the room changed in a way no one expected. Because the man who walked in wasn't just another customer, and he wasn't there by accident. The second officer looked from Danielle's ID to the man who had just stepped inside. The room went quiet in a way that felt unnatural. The man moved forward quickly, eyes scanning the scene. The officers, the manager, the customers holding up their phones. When his gaze landed on Danielle, something flickered across his face. Not confusion, not fear. Fury. He asked what was happening. The manager straightened her posture, suddenly confident, repeating the accusation with even more certainty now that an audience had formed. She insisted Danielle had been uncooperative, that she had reason to believe a theft had occurred, that she was simply following protocol. But the officer holding Danielle's ID spoke before she could continue. He addressed the man who had walked in, not casually, not uncertainly, but with respect. He called him Mayor Brooks. The shift was immediate. Whispers rippled through the store. Phones that had been pointed at Danielle slowly angled toward the manager instead. The confidence drained from her face as recognition settled in. Danielle hadn't mentioned her husband. She hadn't needed to. She had stood there alone, absorbing suspicion, humiliation, and the threat of handcuffs without using his name as a shield. And now, everyone understood what she had understood all along. If the mayor hadn't walked in at that exact moment, this story might have ended very differently. The officer's tone softened. Questions turned into clarifications. The receipt was reviewed again, this time carefully. The security footage was mentioned. The manager's voice lost its sharp edge. Her certainty cracked, because the narrative she had built, the one where Danielle was the problem, was collapsing in real time. And as the weight of what almost happened settled over the room, one truth became impossible to ignore. Respect had arrived only after power did. The officers apologized. Quietly, professionally, almost mechanically. The receipt was confirmed. The security footage backed her up. The accusation dissolved as quickly as it had been made. Within minutes, the flashing lights outside disappeared, and the store's soft music filled the silence again, as if nothing had happened. But something had. Danielle walked out of that store with her husband beside her. Head high, step steady. She hadn't shouted. She hadn't cried. She hadn't used her husband's title to escape humiliation. And that's what lingered. Because she had done everything, right? Long before anyone realized who she was connected to. The manager issued a public apology days later. The store released a statement about additional training and reviewing policies. Online, the video sparked outrage, debate, and support. Some called it a misunderstanding. Others called it what it was. But for Danielle, the impact was quieter. It was the way customers had stepped back from her. The way innocence hadn't been enough. The way respect only entered the room once power did. She kept asking herself the same question. If her husband hadn't walked through that door, would anyone have believed her? That's the part that stays. Because this wasn't just about a scarf. It wasn't just about one store manager. It was about how quickly suspicion attaches itself to certain faces, and how slowly dignity is returned. Danielle went home that night unchanged on the outside. But inside, something had shifted. And maybe that's the real story. How many times does someone have to prove they belong before they're simply treated like they do? If this story moved you, share it. Start the conversation. Because silence is where moments like this survive, and awareness is where they begin to end.